Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing another book recommendations video. You guys were so amazing about my first one that I did about my favorite underrated young adult fantasy series. This video is going to be all about my favorite Eerie reads. Now, these are the reads that are not necessarily only the kind of books that I think you need to read during the Halloween season. There are like spooky books that are definitely tied to Halloween, but to me, Eerie reads are more like atmospheric, and they're also like great for November and just when you're craving like that cool weather and that like very vivid setting. So I've put together a list of books that are my favorite Eerie reads that I think are year-round reads, quite honestly, and I am really excited to share them with you. So here we go. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I recently read, and it is called The Devouring Gray by Christine Lynn Herman. This portion of the video is a paid promotion by Disney Book Group. This is a book that I was so excited to be contacted about. It doesn't actually come out until April of 2019. It actually comes out April 2nd, but this is one that you need to have on your radar. I can tell you that because I read the entire thing. I like consumed it within a day and a half because I could not tear myself away from it. It is so well written. It is so amazing. It takes place in upstate New York and it's compared to Riverdale meets Stranger Things, and I think that those are very apt descriptions for this series. I also think it reminds me of Over the Garden Wall, my favorite series in the world. It follows a girl named Violet who moves to the spooky town called Four Paths. She is one of the descendants of the founders of the town, but she's never been there before, so you're kind of learning everything along with her while she's finding out about her past and the things that her family has been tied to. In this town, there is an impending threat from this creature called the Beast. It lurks within the woods, and it's up to the descendants of the founders to keep the town safe from this beast and this threat. When we start our story, there have actually been a number of bodies that are piling up. So the townspeople, the like local townspeople within Four Paths, are getting really fed up and they're really annoyed that the founders are not protecting them in the way that they're supposed to. They kind of start revolting, but it is just fascinating. Like I said, it is so well written, and Violet is our main character. So we follow her, we follow Harper, who is another one of the descendants, as well as Justin, May, and Isaac. And again, all of them are descendants of the founders. So there's this like super creepy poem that goes along with the founders and what kind of magic each of the founders has like kind of tied to them. And each of the kids has to go through a ritual. Once they're like ready for it, they undergo this ritual within the woods, and that reveals their power, and that is what they use to keep the town safe. Oh man, it was so good. As I'm sure you can imagine, having not only the children but the adults involved in this like secret history of the town. There are tons of secrets, and each family is hiding things from other families. There are different alliances that are set up between the four families, and as you learn more about the magic and the actual founding of the town, you will just feel for these descendants, and also you will be completely intrigued by what the heck is going on in this place. I like need the second book immediately. It's a duology, so you will get a conclusion within the second book, but the way that the first book ended, I was just like, oh my god, give it to me now. Like, how am I gonna wait? This is something that you guys really need to add to your Goodreads shelves like immediately because it was so good. This was like an immediate new favorite for me, as seeing as how it made this list. I really enjoyed it. I think that you guys are really gonna love it. You will not want to miss this one. The next book on my list is one that you guys have heard me mention several times, and that is This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. I really love this mystery thriller. It is so good, and again, this is another one where there is a murder that takes place within the woods. I swear I'm just like drawn to woods and like creepy settings. It's just like what I live for. But this one specifically follows a girl named Kate who is interning at her local district attorney's office, and she ends up getting involved in this case there are 5 boys who are all best friends. They go hunting into the woods together one morning, but only 4 of the boys come out and none of them are talking. None of them will say exactly what happened to the last boy. Oh man, I love this cover. Getting distracted. None of them will say any of the details of what happened to the last boy, but someone must know what it is that happened to him. They went hunting and the boy was shot, but again, no one is saying anything. And then they're all transferred from their like private prep school to the local high school. So Kate also has to go to school with them, and lines get kind of blurred because she's, you know, not really supposed to be involved with them on a personal level, but she's also very interested in cracking this case and finding out exactly what happened. And she ends up forming a friendship with one of the boys. It just like, it's so well written and so exciting. And I thought that the mystery was just so well done. And I was not expecting to love it anywhere near as much as I did. This is one of the few thrillers that I have kept on my shelves because I feel like thrillers tend to lose their rereadability factor because you already know like the surprise or the twist at the end. But I did not feel that way with this one. Like this is one that I could see myself reading again just because I loved it so much. It also kind of gave me Raven Boys vibes because there's this like close group of guy friends that all have secrets. And yeah, I also really loved Kate's best friend who's really into fashion and she makes their Halloween costumes, and it's just such a great read. You guys have heard me talk about this before, I know, but I just, anytime that I get the opportunity to mention it, I do, just because I love it so much. And again, this cover is just so good because look, there's 5 shadows because there's 5 boys that went into the woods. There's a deer head on one of the shadows because one of the boys was hunted and did not come out alive. And then this says, "This is our story." But if you look at the letters that are blurred out, it really says his story, which I just think is so clever. Like this cover was just so cleverly done. Okay, anyway, sorry, I'm like, I could talk about this book forever. It's so good. Next up, I'm just gonna hold up one of these, but it is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I feel like this is a pretty obvious one to be on this list. Well, first of all, it's my favorite young adult series like ever. It's so good. It follows a girl named Blue who grew up in a family of psychics. She's the only one who doesn't have a psychic gift, but her power is that she kind of amplifies things for the rest of the psychics so they can get a much clearer reading of what's going on if she's around. And since she was very young, she has been told by her family that she's destined that once she meets her true love and kisses him, he's going to die. So she has had this like complex pretty much and never really got close to anyone because she doesn't want that to happen. But she meets these Raven Boys. She finds out about their quest for Glendower, who is this Welsh king. They want to find their way into his tomb. And each of the characters is just so well written, so different from one another, but their friend group is so close. And in every single book, you can just tell how much they truly love each other. It is like friendship at its finest. This is another series that I just devoured. I loved the audiobooks. I loved reading them physically. I loved reading them on ebook. I don't think there's a format that this series could come in that I wouldn't enjoy. So perfect. My love is Gansey. He's the best boy. I really just love them so much, and I can't wait for Maggie to come out with the Ronin trilogy. I feel like I don't need to say much more about the series because you guys have already heard me rave about it a ton. Next on my list is the Diviner series by Libba Bray. This takes place in the 1920s in New York City, and it follows a girl named Evie who has some paranormal powers going on. She is a seer. She has visions once she touches certain items that are tied to people. Holy smokes, this book is so good. This is definitely another very eerie read because there is a very creepy mystery that's going on in here. So Evie pretty much gets exiled to New York City when she gets in trouble in her like small hometown, and she goes to live with her uncle who is obsessed with the occult. The police end up finding a murdered girl who has a very cryptic symbol that's tattooed on her. Evie realizes that her power might be able to help find this serial killer and stop him from hurting other people. So she gets involved in the case and it gets very intense. But this book is also just really fun and really atmospheric because it's the 20s, it's the roaring 20s. So we've got lots of speakeasies, we've got lots of like forbidden drinking and stuff, and just Ziegfeld girls and like grand shows and people dressing up, and the language in here is so much fun. It's so reminiscent of that time, like exactly what you would expect. This is probably the scariest book that is on this list, but again, it's one that is like such a great year-round read. In addition to Evie, there's also a much wider cast of characters, and as you continue the series, you get to meet more and more characters and explore even more areas within New York City, like such as Harlem and Chinatown, and it's just so captivating. The next one on my list is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is a book that I love so much. It is very fairy tale-esque, but it has like a much more creepy and eerie twist to it. Again, there is a big part of the story that takes place like going through woods. I just love creepy woods. So it follows a girl named Alice, and her grandmother is famous for writing this book of like cult fairy tales, and it has a very strong following, but it's out of print. Very strange things happen. Once people try to acquire the book, things tend to happen to them until the book disappears. Alice's mom ends up getting kidnapped. Alice is trying to find out what happened to her, and one of the characters from her grandmother's stories ends up showing up. Alice is like, what the heck? It turns out that the fairy tales that her grandmother wrote maybe aren't so fictional, and she has to go to her grandmother's estate to try to find and save her mother, even though she was always told by her mom to stay away from the Hazelwood. No matter what happens under any circumstance, just stay away from Althea's estate. But she ventures there and things happen. And it's just so good. It's so well written. I think Melissa Albert did a really good job with this one. And I also like that a big part of this also takes place in New York City. You get like modern day and a fantasy world, which is fun, but it's just such a good read for like a cold night where you just want to be like snuggled up and really fall into another world. Next on my list is The Wicked Deep by Shea Earnshaw. This is a book about a girl named Penny who lives in this town called Sparrow, and Sparrow is a very cursed town. Every year there are 3 sisters who were witches and they were killed by the locals in the town, and every summer swan season, because they were the Swan sisters, comes back to the town, and the 3 witches end up possessing 3 of the young girls in the town, and those girls lure young boys into the ocean to drown them to take vengeance for the sisters. It takes place in this really cool seaport town, and the whole time that I was reading this I was just like, I want to visit here, despite this like whole drowning situation that happens once a year. It sounds like such a cool place to visit. Penny lives on an island just away from where all of the like main events with the sisters take place. So every time that she wants to go back and forth, she has to take a boat, but you just get such a clear picture of this Eerie town, and there's like mist and stuff because we've got the water and like the salt of the sea in the air, and it's just so entertaining. During this swan season, there is a tourist that actually comes to the town. He has no idea what's going on, and he's looking for work, and Penny kind of feels bad for him because she's like, oh my god, he doesn't know what's going on, so she ends up taking him to her island and giving him a job. But Penny and, oh, the guy's name is Beau. So Penny and Beau end up forming a kind of friendship, but they're each hiding things from each other, and it's seriously just such an eerie read, and it will definitely keep you interested the entire time. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is one of my favorite books to read in November, and that is The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. Same author as The Raven Boys, of course, but this is Maggie's lesser talked about work, but it's so good. Like, I really wish that more people would talk about it. This is a really creepy and eerie read. It follows a girl named Puck who is entering into the Scorpio races. She is the first girl to ever do so, and many of the people in the town are not happy about it because they think that it is a man's competition. And pretty much what the Scorpio races is that once per year, every November, the Scorpio races occur in this town. Each of the people who compete have a water horse that they use, and they are like very deadly. The people who are in it have to kind of train them and form a relationship with their horse, but it's very deadly. There are a lot of people who don't make it through the Scorpio races. It's like one of the most dangerous things that you can possibly do. I mean, even the back of the book says it is the first day of November, and so today someone will die. If you like horses, you might be a little bit traumatized while you're reading this, but I still highly recommend doing so. I mean, it's Maggie Stiefvater, so it's like magical. She does such a good job of getting you to love these characters, getting you to really be on Puck's side as she is fighting to just have equal treatment and be able to be in this race that has been dominated by men for so long. It'll really kind of tear your heart out. I really suggest reading this one, and again, November is the perfect time to do so because that is when this book takes place and everything is kind of cold and frigid, and then you're in the autumn sea, and it's just such a great read. So those are all of the books that I have to talk about in this video. Those are all of my like favorite eerie reads that I keep going back to time and time again. So let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know if you have any other recommendations for me, because I seriously just love, especially like if there's any kind of element with the woods. I think that's like my favorite thing in the world. And again, don't forget forget to check out The Devouring Gray, which is coming out on April 2nd. I cannot recommend this book enough. I know that you guys are going to love it just as much as I loved it. It already has really great reviews on Goodreads from people who have read it so far, and I just cannot rave about it enough. It's so good. That is all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!